आत्मन्येवाखिलं दृश्यं प्रविलाप्य धिया सुधीः भावयेदेकमात्मानं निर्मलाकाशवत् सदा। आत्मन्येवाखिलं दृश्यं प्रविलाप्य धिया सुधीः भावयेदेकमात्मानं निर्मलाकाशवत् सदा। Having intelligently merged the entire manifest world in Atman alone, Atmanye Atmani eva Akhilam Drishyam. Akhilam means the entire objective world. Pravilapya Dhiya Sudhihi. Sudhihi is the wise. Dhiya, the wise, intelligently have dissolved. Pravilapya. Pravilapya means having dissolved. Dhiya, intelligently. What have they done? Drishyam, the entire objective, the entire manifest world in Atman alone. Atmani eva, into the Atman. The wise one should constantly meditate upon the Atman as the stainless sky. Bhavaye eka atmanam nirmala akashavat sada. Sada means constantly. Bhavaye, constantly meditate. Atmanam, upon the self as the stainless sky. Nirmala akashat. Akashavat. Akashavat means as the sky. Now, there's a distinct difference of the perception here. The fundamental difference of the perception of a lay person, which is all of us, vis-a-vis a man of realization. The distinct perception, the perception is the perception of the world. We see the world as Nama Rupa. It's a very often used terminology. Nama Rupa. Nama Rupa means names and forms. In fact, in the next verse, he's going to mention all this. There's a reference to that. So when we talk of names and forms, we see a plurality. When we say a plurality, we see a heterogeneous variety of expression of names and forms. We see differences, we see distinctions, we see demarcations on various aspects. We see the different kingdoms, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, the human kingdom. And thereafter, we start seeing the human kingdom as different demarcations. You segregate them based on their sex. You say male, female. And you segregate them based on their castes, color, creed, community, country, economic status, religious status. And you can go on and on and on. You only see a world of plurality. But the same world of plurality is perceived by a man of realization. They perceive the same world as Brahman and Brahman alone. The same world we see as plurality, they see as ekam, non-dual. They just see as the one. So the spiritual progression is from plurality, you come to a point of duality, and from duality, you come to a point of non-dual. If you want to summarize the entire spiritual journey in 3 words, from plurality to non-duality, from plurality to duality, duality to non-duality. Duality is where there exists you and God, you and Brahman. There are 2 things. Now for us exists me and the entire world of plurality. As I've said, the various distinctions and demarcations and separations. We don't see that oneness. We see everything as standing alone with distinct characteristics, distinct attributes, different personalities. But the same world at some stage in your spiritual journey becomes Brahman, becomes God. So you perceive God. The entire pluralistic world appears to you as God. It is you and Brahman. This is known as a state of duality, where 2 exist, you and God. And comes the final stage, which is non-dual. There is no more separation between you and God. There only exists one reality, Brahman. So the suggestion, what we're getting here is, in order to meditate on Atman, what should you do? A very high state. Whatever I'm talking is a very high state. Theoretically, write down, oh, there are 3 steps. I'm familiar with these ideas. Let us be real. We will have a problem with our mother-in-law. We will have a problem with our neighbor. You will have a problem with the government. You will have a problem with that and this, plenty of problems. You will not see them as Brahman. Don't give me a false, unrealistic statement that I see Brahman everywhere. Lecture when you're giving lecture somewhere, you will lecture there. But the reality is you cannot see Brahman. I'm saying because being realistic, you got to accept it. So but in order to achieve that state, he says, having intelligently dissolved the entire objective world in the Atman alone, you should dissolve it. Everything must merge into the manifest world, into the Atman. And when does it merge? When does the entire objective of the manifest world merge into the Atman, merge in the Brahman alone? How do you do that? How do you achieve the state? Then only you should meditate. Before that, there's no point meditating. Look at that. This all should dissuade you from meditating. It should. It's best only when we achieve this state. That's what he's saying. Upon the Atman as the stainless sky. The comparison of Atman is to the sky. Nirmala Akashavat. The Atman is like a sky. So when you say a sky, what is he referring to? Stainless sky. What does stainless sky refer to here? Refers to space, isn't it? There's a subtle reference to space. So all the other 4 elements, which is sound, what are the other 4 elements? Space, air, fire, water, earth. So air, water, fire, earth are contained in space and they don't contaminate space. So it's pure, Nirmala. So he's comparing the state of Atman to that as the sky. which is referred. When you say sky, you must take it the space, because where is sky? Is in the space, isn't it? Isn't it? Am I right? It's in that open space. இதெல்லாம் ரொம்ப டிஃபிகல்ட்டுங்க. ஃபைண்ட் எக்ஸ்பிளனேஷனுக்கே நான் டிஃபிகல்ட், ஐ எம் ஸ்ட்ரகிளிங். நீங்க வேற. The question is, how do you dissolve? How does the entire manifest world merge into Atman? I don't know how it happens. Therefore, I'm asking. I'm not asking to convey the message to you all. I'm asking to learn from you all. Anybody knows, please let me know. How does one dissolve the entire manifest world into the Atman? Harish is smiling. The rest all are very serious. So when somebody smiles, that means they have an answer. That's my conclusion. Yes, Harish.
Guruji, I'm laughing at my own ignorance. But possibly the only way to dissolve various things into the, or various being, various whatever perceptions into the ultimate, is by not differentiating them. Therefore, you remove the concept of differentiation. So you say, perceive everything as one. That's the only way. So you don't, you remove the, what do you call it? Remove differentiation. So, or distinctiveness, or boundaries, or whatever. Anything which distinguishes. So, as they said, form is not the ultimate reality.
Okay. Yes, you're not wrong. See, where the question we got to ask is, when does the differentiation, which I said the plurality is at the maximum, and when does the plurality start, the distinction start disappearing, and or it starts getting narrower until you come to a point of duality and non-duality. So there is a maximum differentiation. When does it happen? So perhaps that could be the line of thought. Perhaps we can think along. You know. Ramji is saying, practice seeing the pure Atman, the commonality in all, treating everyone as equal. The question is, how does one achieve that? Drop the ego. Is it that easy to drop the ego? Jayama says, from ego consciousness to universal brotherhood. So perhaps the whole cue we can get perhaps from the words uses the words having intelligently dissolved. That intelligence is having intelligently, wisely. Now the opposite of that is and unintelligent identification. So the verse says, having intelligently dissolved, dhiya, parvilapya dhiya. Dhiya means intelligence. Now, how are we operating? We are operating because of an unintelligent identification. Now, the friction with the world is maximum when your identification is with the dash, fill in the blank. The friction with the world is maximum when your identification is with if I had not continued my identification with you all, something prompted on my system to leave the classroom. So luckily I said cancel. If I said leave, my identification with you all is cut. I don't know, something propped up. This is the problem of online. See, the identification, when the identification is with the physical body, the separation from you and the world is maximum. Because when I say my body, it's me. It doesn't identify with anybody else. The moment you go beyond the body, identify with the mind. The mind is beyond the boundaries of the body. So the circle of identification is far greater than just identification with the body, isn't it? When I have a feeling for you all, I instantly identify. To that extent where there's a feeling of identification, instantly there is no more barriers, there's no more differences. But when I say my body is not you, you're not my body. So I separate. There's otherness. So the grossness of identification with the gross body separates, differentiates, creates the distinction, otherness. Move to the mind, it is lesser. Identification with the intellect is through understanding and knowledge and wisdom. There is a far less differentiation. You may not feel, but you are able to understand that person. You're able to think from that person's perspective. So it's a superior than the feelings. So the differences disappear. Now the same thing you identify with the Atman. Instantly, all the differences disappear. You see a oneness. So if I entertain the thought that the entire world is not, see, one school of thought we say is that world is an illusion, isn't it? We say world is illusion, Brahman is real. There's another concept we say that world is not different from God, world is God. One idea we say world is illusion, Brahman is real. That's one standpoint, philosophical standpoint. Other standpoint is another philosophical concept we learn is world is not different from God, world is God. Then why is world appearing different from God? It is nothing but permutation, combination of the elements which constitute it. World is not different from God, world is God. And only a man of realization sees God where you see a world of plurality, which I said in the very beginning. How do we say world is God? Permutation, combination, exactly like take charcoal and take diamond. Charcoal, as we know, has certain characteristics. Diamond has certain characteristics. Charcoal is black, is cheap, is so soft, it writes on paper. Diamond is bright, is hard, it's rare, it's expensive. And yet, carbon and diamond, charcoal and diamond are both carbon molecules. It's just the permutation combination that makes us different. Similarly, the very inner core of matter, which is the world, is no different from Atman, or the truth, or the reality. Is just a permutation combination, is just a different structure. That's about all. Is one and the same. Now, the question is, how do we intelligently dissolve? How do you intelligently dissolve? Is by intelligently moving away from the unintelligent identification with the equipment. You slowly move away from the body to the mind, to the intellect, to the self. Automatically, the world starts dissolving. The differences starts disappearing. The differences start disintegrating. There's no more the difference. You see a oneness. See, if we have the thought that we are all, there is this in mathematics, there is this, the term called the LCM. What is LCM? Ushama, you know what LCM is? I know it was a long time ago.
Exactly. I was trying to recall, Guruji.
LCM vis-a-vis HCF.
Yes.
These are the two terms we use in mathematics. The LCM is known as wisdom is flowing, lowest common multiple.
Yeah.
Vis-a-vis the highest common factor.
Yes.
Now, when the lowest common multiple means, what is the common denominator you are seeing another person? When I present another person to you, what is it that you're identifying with? What is the common denominator, the LCM factor? Just put this to a test. Your maid comes to your house. What is the lowest common factor you identify with her?
The physical appearance.
Do you identify only with the physical appearance?
Means also the mood which she comes in, or her.
So you only identify with the mood, only emotions? No, I'm not trying to gauge your LCM with the maid. I'm just saying, take an example. The maid is there. What is the LCM with that person?
And as a person, another person who is helpful to you, or who is who will make your life more easy.
Okay. All right. Now again, I'm saying there's nothing right and wrong here. It's just, what is LCM is something which I got to ask myself, and I can actually put it to test in every experience. This is it's so difficult to explain these concepts because they're describing of a state. But how do I practice it? Is how you put this seemingly a matter of a statement of fact into an abhyasa. This is the struggle, or this is the attempt we are making now. He says, just dissolve the entire world into Atman and meditate. Now, how do you achieve that? That is where the statement of fact is being converted into a statement of practice. So the statement of practice, I said, is, I'm just trying to recap your thoughts. What I said, identification with an unintelligent identification with the body, mind, intellect is that which creates the differences, separation, creates a plurality. So you got to get to the lowest common factor. The maximum friction with the world is when with body, and as you grow higher, it disappears. All right. Now, I took the context or example of LCM. When the maid, you take a maid, what could be the LCM with reference to that person? Or you take an employee, an employer, an employee relationship. What is the employer-employee relationship in an organization? Two people. Ramji says you see that person as a human being. Ramji, that is a very high level to see that person as just as a human being. Even just to see that person as a human being is at a very high level. Sheila ji says her integrity, her work efficiency. Tinkuma says she's also another mother, another person with her own challenges. Vasanti says skill and ability to serve a job. What can be the LCM? Vijay Raghavanji, what can be LCM? No, okay, yes, Vijay, I'll take your views.
Guruji.
Yes, sir.
I can think of maybe fellow Hyderabadi and person who speaks the same language. I can communicate with the person.
Okay. So if he is not from South India, let's say he's from West Bengal. He doesn't speak your language. He doesn't know your culture, but he's your employee. So
then the fellow human being is the only thing. I mean, that is the first thing. And both of you are together trying to do something, get something done.
Sir, before fellow human being, what comes? Okay, just to help you understand. No. Neighboring country, Pakistan, also one fellow is there.
Okay.
But they are not necessarily Pakistan. A fellow from another religion, staunch Muslim. Now I'm trying to see how many different possibilities of differences and demarcation come in when you're identifying with an employee. So I'm not saying there's anything right or wrong, but how can I perceive? What can I perceive in him? Can I, okay, taking the example of an employee, employer, or an organization, what could be the perspective which dissolves all the differences?
Common goal of the company.
Common goal of the company. The fact that all of us are wearing the same banner, we all represent that same banner, the same organization, isn't it? The moment you see that person as a person who represents that organization, so that when the LCM is, let's say, Toshiba or Sony or BMW, when you see a person wearing that logo, doesn't matter, he may come from a different country, from a different region, from a different part, a different plant, but the fact that this man is wearing that banner, the LCM is the organization. Now, Reddy Garu, now the moment you identify LCM as the organization, what is it that disappears? Can you tell me?
All the differences, all the gaps.
Okay, let's say if this LCM of the organization is not there, what are the differences that appear? Possible differences.
Possible differences which will appear, we mean to say.
When you don't see that banner that we're all under one umbrella, you don't have that perception.
Yeah, various things comes across because it's a perception of the person. Like I look at that person is how effective in the communication or the attitude. So the various things keeps coming with the person to person, because you already prejudged them and you have your own opinion on them because you've been known to them. It's not that unknown. Like even the servant maid, you know to her, I immediately, if she is coming late, today she has come on time, most probably, yes, she has come. So the fact is that, yes, she has come. So it all, what is being, you have created your own opinion and thoughts in your mind is the first thing which comes. And whether you gauge those things, whether she has come on time or not. If she has come on time, then you have a positive opinion. If she has come late, then as usual, you come to say that, yes, this is what I expected from them. Same is the question with the teams because it's all been driven by our own thoughts, which have been predefined in our thinking. That's what I could say.
Yeah. So just sticking to the example of the identifying with the banner. Let's say there are 100 employees in an organization. There can be 100 challenges because there's you versus 99 people, isn't it?
Yeah.
That many different opinions, that many different dynamics. Each one brings their own talent to the organization. Each one is efficiencies, their own egos, their own personalities. Then there are different teams, different objectives, different priorities. Now, which is evident, which is there. But from my perception, how do I intelligently dissolve all these apparent differences, demarcations, egos by me? I can choose to identify with their egos, with their talents, with their teams, with their efficiencies. Or I can choose to identify with the common banner that we are all 100 people representing this organization. Not that you'll be blindfolded to their inefficiencies, but you will not see a difference. You will not, there will be no hatred. Sir, can I ask you, do you love your tongue more or your toe more?
No differentiation. We equally do that.
Why not? Why not?
Each have his own functions, so we need to appreciate that.
Nothing is superior or inferior. You can carry on your life. I can carry on my life if I lost my toe, but I can't imagine a life if I have lost my tongue, isn't it? Imagine my tongue is chopped off. I can't imagine. I've lost my speech. I've lost my taste. I've lost it. I don't know what life is without it. But yet I can't say I love my tongue more than my toe. Each has a role. So I'm not talking of which is superior, inferior, which is better or not. It's just that, do I see a oneness in that 100 people? So I have dissolved all the multitude of differences and complications because of the otherness by identifying with the lowest common factor. The lowest common multiple is, I see you are representing the same organizations I am. The moment I see we are one. You see that? So that also day in and day out is to attune to that frequency is a very high level. It's not easy. I'm just being very practical here. You are involved in organizations. We're all involved. We all been involved in organization, institutions, X number of people. Where there are more than 2 people, what invariably comes up is
conflict,
because there are 2 different individualities. There's ego, there's politics, there is preferences. It is invariable, inevitable, isn't it?
That's true.
I've seen extremely dirty politics played in spiritual institutions. I'm not talking of corporate bodies. Extremely low attitude. And yet they are in a spiritual institution. They're doing social service, or they're in a charitable organization. They're doing, seemingly they're supposed to be evolved souls. And yet I see the kind of attitudes that they bring into that institution. Yet you and I have to rise above that and see a oneness. So LCM, what is the LCM you operate with when you go out? I'm only trying to explain how we dissolve the differences. Now, I will raise the bar. Let me hear from Setramanji. Yes, sir.
Hari Om Guruji, I just wanted to give the analogy like teeth in a gear. All teeth are important. If one teeth is broken, the gear doesn't function. So in an organization, everyone has a role to play. Security guard to MD, all are equal. All are equal teeth. Because
Correct.
one gets affected, the entire organization gets affected. People think the CEO is important, but equally the man at the gate is also important.
Yeah, he doesn't man the gate one day, come back tomorrow, entire go down is emptied.
Yeah.
CEO is peacefully sleeping in his luxurious bungalow, but the security guard has not locked the go down, and all the resources are gone, disappeared. All the things. So no one is less or more important, isn't it? Right. You're true, very true. All the teeth doesn't matter the size, everyone is very important. So the concept we are trying to examine is how do we get over the apparent differences and demarcations which creates an otherness and animosity. How do you dissolve everything into that one Atman? Badrinathji, you want to say something, sir?
Guruji, this is a very personal way of looking at the questions you're posing. Okay, so if I have your permission.
Please.
Yeah, so I look at it personally, I look at it at two different levels. At an intellectual level, based on my understanding of science, and here I'm taking the benefit of science, I already know a certain unity in the whole universe. Okay, so the only thing that I cannot, having seen that unity in a certain primordial form of energy which is behind the whole universe, what I cannot connect is that energy with Brahman. Okay. So therefore, that is at one level. But at the other level, there is my ego. So though I see an identity between me and the next person as, let's say, human beings, and me and my dog as two life forms, and let's say me and a mountain as two objects on earth, and these are all forms of unification. Therefore, theoretically, I should have no conflict in my life, because at an intellectual level, I do see a unity everywhere. But I do have conflict, and I see that the conflict comes because of ego. And therefore, I love another person to irritate me because at the stage of interaction, I see a separation. Though at an intellectual, I see a unity. At the moment I interact with somebody, I see a separation. And the ego is the one that blinds the intellect and creates a separation. Similarly, when I deal with the government, for instance, okay, what is the government? It's a collection of people. Theoretically, I should see it. I'm a citizen of India. There should be a feeling of oneness. And, but when the government irritates me, I get irritated. Why do I get irritated? Okay, I allow the outside world to disturb my peace of mind. Maybe because I have desires. Maybe the government is taking away money from me as taxes, which I think is unfair. Whatever be the reason, I allow that too. So, though there is a awareness of a unity in the whole universe, and I genuinely have that awareness, I find my ego coming in the way of acting with that unity.
Now, if you say the intellect is aware, and yet the ego comes in, there has to be an establishment and a certain perception. If I say that we are all human beings, if that's a fact that I have attuned and that's my LCM, then there should be no conflict between two human beings. No human being can ever dislodge me. Perhaps a neighboring dog, because it's barking whole night, can disturb my sleep. And I can get annoyed at the neighbor dog, but not at the neighbor, because I identify with a human being. If that's what you say, it is not a mere understanding. We're talking about getting established in that state. It's a very different, two different things.
Exactly. Yeah. But if my ego, if I don't allow that to come in, that means I'm established in the state. So it's what I would call that as a superficial intellectual understanding without a manifestation in the way I act out in the world. Okay,
Correct.
the intellect
Yes.
should actually drive the way we act out in the world all the time. Most of the time it does, but quite often it doesn't. And I notice in myself that the dichotomy arises when my ego comes. If I have some way of suppressing my ego, then I feel that this dichotomy will disappear.
Yes. No, that's how we differentiate between knowledge and wisdom.
Right.
We understand, but to the extent we are established in the wisdom, then we start seeing the differences disappear. There is no further difference. See, the differences create otherness and creates an animosity or hatred, and then comes it has dislodged your peace and equanimity.
Yeah.
So
I don't experience hatred. I never. But I do experience irritation, and I feel that even irritation, okay, or momentary anger, or fear, okay, momentary fear or fear, all these are because that feeling of unity which I have at an intellectual level hasn't gone so deep that it is.
Yeah.
I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. It is there.
I get it absolutely.
It's not gone beyond that level.
No, it's I can understand, and I'm sure others are able to relate to what you're saying. You're very clear. But so coming to going back to the example of the maid, how can you perceive? What is the perception you can have of the maid? It is very much a potential. The LCM, you can identify, you can see the Atman in her. Can you see the Atman in her? Ushaba, you can see the Atman in her. That potential.
Yes, Guruji, off.
So either we see that person as someone who I've employed to do my job,
or as another soul.
I can see. So that possibility is how high, how lofty has your thought? How high is your thought? Which we are calling it as LCM, the lowest common factor. So the moment I see the Atman, I identify the Atman in me, I instantly identify the Atman in others.
Correct.
I identify with the body in me, I only identify with myself. I see the emotions in me. Those who love me, I love them. Those who hate me, I obviously don't love them. Intellectually, those who agree with me, I agree with them. Those who challenge my views, I don't agree with them. I will bulldoze them with my views and opinions. I'm right, you're wrong. Who are you, man? I'm saying I know more than you. My argument is right, you're wrong. Intellectually, you will never accept someone who is against your intellectual ideas. But the moment I identify with the Atman, instantly I see the oneness everywhere. So the lowest common multiple. So in every situation, you got to ask yourself, what is it that I'm identifying with? Now, I've only taken examples so that you can relate to it and start practicing. So the moment you get to the highest, lowest common multiple, the entire world disappears. There's no more differences. Now the question somebody's posed directly to me is Jama, in fact, asking, if the denominator is love, can the differences dissolve? Now, love based on what? Love is nothing but identification. Now, identification is with what? You can have an argument with your sibling. You can have an argument with your child. You can have an argument with your neighbor. You can have an argument with someone in your organization. The question is, what is identification?
Guruji, Hari Om. Supposing in an organization, for example, if you know that all employees are not equally endowed with the talent and efficiency, some are good, some are bad. But
Yes.
if you operate on the premise of love, you would sort of be encouraging to the person who's inefficient, try to lift him, motivate him, and without without really putting him down. So then, slowly the love could be the force which could really bring a sort of a oneness, or that you feel love is the operating factor. So then what happens is you don't see the differences, you accept the differences, and you try to correct them out of love, you try to reprimand them out of love without you know putting them down. Then I think that if really,
It's like a mother.
right, correct.
A mother loves her child. The child, imagine a child completely burnt in fire, 90% burnt. The mere sight of that person, you can't stand, you can't tolerate. How does a mother look at that person? How does the mother identify with that individual? 90% burned, flesh is hanging all over. The child, the person is being treated. How does the mother approach that?
She will still love the child, Guruji.
Perhaps you and I will not be able to identify. We can only emotionally feel to a certain extent that sorrow, the child, the pain that child is going through. But that identification, what a mother has, is far superior to the identification or the compassion you and I feeling we have. It is superficial feeling. Beyond a point, you would not even go and want to handle the child. It's a different feeling altogether, isn't it? So love is nothing but the moment you have that identification or love which creates a oneness, there is no separation. So it is that lack of identification that creates otherness, which creates friction with the world. Remember this principle. The principle is lack of identification, which creates otherness, which creates friction. If I substitute that with identification and oneness, there's instantly the differences disappear. There's only harmony. Just because we have a different point of view, that doesn't mean I must hate you, isn't it? Just because you have an intellectual different opinion doesn't mean I must hate you as a person, isn't it? You get what I'm saying? But because there is a common factor, the common factor is that identification. Once there's love, there's no more differentiation. And wherever there is a differentiation, we got to go back to the bottom line. Now, even if you apply the LCM as a family, that LCM as a family itself is not there. It's very difficult. Two different personalities, but in that family, do we have a total oneness of unconditional love? In a family unit of 5 people, 4 people, I'm not even talking of your siblings. I'm not talking of your nephews and nieces and your co-sisters, co-brothers. I'm not even going that far. Your own pocket family. There is no oneness. There is bickering and complaining and argument and non-acceptance and pointing fingers. What happens to that love? There's so much of our ego comes in and ruptures that relationship. It's a fact of matter, please. Got to go deep with it and find out that as Badrinath Ji was saying, our ego is so pronounced that if my own spouse or my own immediate family don't agree to me, I don't care. At least for that moment, my perception is there's a rupture. I don't identify with them as myself. Take an example with Reddy Garu. Do I like my toe or my tongue? Man, we're all one family. What did you do? Do I see? Can I bring that perception of seeing my tongue and toe as myself to my own family? Immediate family, which I call my family. Can I bring that?
But you're absolutely right, Guruji. We could see that there's a lot of difference of opinions keeps coming every moment to moment, because we have been so strongly identified with our own self views and understanding. I think either we talk about the compassion or the empathy, which are one of the basic factors which we don't apply immediately, because first of all, we want to prove ourselves. Our views are the ultimate, and we know better than anyone else. That's one thing. So the moment any conflicting view comes, when somebody is simplest one, somebody says that close the door. So that you can always that, why should I close the door? Why not you close the door?
As simple as that. Isn't it?
Part of it. That. So immediately, it's not beyond we're talking anything big great. Just closing a door, a request comes, or it could be a reaction, or it could be a response. So all the way we choose for the reaction, then the response.
So what I'm trying to tell you is to take a stock of where I am and relate to what the verse is saying. So from my humble understanding, these are two extreme poles. One is North Pole, other is South Pole, sir. We are poles apart as to reality where we are and what the verse is advising, isn't it?
Absolutely.
There's so much of self-worship, self-glorification, identification with my views, my feelings, my body. I and my is that which is ruling me, is driving me. So it is all anybody and anybody who gives respect to this individual body, mind, intellect. I am with them. I love them. If somebody out there doesn't agree with me, doesn't feel for me, doesn't think for my well-being, go to dogs with you. I'm not, you don't exist for me. I will drop you like a penny. I'll drop you like a hot pan. This is the reality of life. Believe me, this is the reality of life. So when I look myself in the mirror, this is what I got to tell myself. To what extent am I identifying with my own self, or am I able to identify with something beyond myself? So the test is our own family. Start putting that. Is the LCM the family? Would I chop off my toe thinking it's less useful to me? I would not chop my toe. I may not find any evident use of my toe, but I will not chop my toe. Do I see that oneness in my own family? Is there that feeling of non-hatred? That's a real acid test, a litmus test. I don't want to say that, but if any one of us come out in flying colors, passing all the tests, we're at a very high level. Go beyond the family, very high level. From the family comes the larger family. Then perhaps the immediate community, the locality you're living in. Then comes the society. Then comes perhaps your country. You know, if you're in a foreign land, would you uphold your country or would you tarnish the image of your own country? You're on a foreign land. And you as an Indian, would you uphold the image of your nation in the eyes of others, or would you tarnish your own country? It talks. What is your opinion of the country where you belong? If you uphold, then you're at a very high level. So there's so much of differences, demarcations and divisions, otherness. How do you dissolve all that? Slowly, step by step, you got to rise above the body, above the mind, above the intellect, to the Atman. And once you are able to embrace that thought of the Atman wholeheartedly, then everything else dissolves into the Atman, because the lowest common factor everywhere is the Atman. That which is all pervading is Atman. And I identify with the Atman, I identify with everything. I identify with my body, I only identify with myself. Now what is the common factor amongst all of us? What is the LCM amongst all of us? Rajima, you see all of us here, X number of us who are there, who are not there. What could be the LCM, which it's like a string that binds different beads and different pearls. But what is that string?
That we are all seekers, Guruji, of the wisdom.
We're all spiritual seekers. And amongst the spiritual seekers, there can be people who are spiritual beginners. There are people
And
who are
advanced seekers.
Isn't it?
Yes, Guruji.
So the perception amongst us should be, we are all one. Just like the tongue and the toe, it's me. Isn't it, Ma?
Yes, Guruji.
So when we attune to the commonness, and what happens? Let's say I am interacting with all of you. You are interacting with all of us in this group.
Then each one of us help each other grow.
Let's say somebody is not helping you grow. Somebody is a thorn in the flesh to you. What is your perception of that person who's a thorn in the flesh to you? This thorn must be removed and gutted off. Would you say that? Because it's a thorn. Somebody is rupturing, is creating a friction. What should be my perception of that?
He's exhausting his vasanas.
Adingappa. If that helps you, why not? That person has irritable vasanas and that person is exhausting irritable vasanas. I am only
The medium.
the medium of his exhaustion. So be it, tatastu. You bless him. And when you bless him, you have no hatred, animosity because that person is being a thorn in your flesh. Tatastu, carry on. I'm giving you moksha. Like other day when you were talking Ramayana, Rama put his feet on, there was this context of Ahilya that came up. Gayatri Ma brought that context. So wherever we are challenged, it is to that extent we have that identification. To that extent, there is no otherness. Believe me, it can start, the acid test start with the family. You take it to your organization. You take to any level and find yourself. You know exactly where one is faulting. This is the application part, how to test where we are. Philosophically, it has to, everything dissolves only when you have the thought of Atman. So the sad part is we are not able to identify with the Atman. Sorry, there seems to be some opinions that are floating here. Hariji, what is that's going on? On the sideline, something all that's going on. Is anything to note, Hariji?
Hari Om, Guruji.
Yes, Ji.
No, you have said it all perfectly, Guruji. I don't think whatever I was trying to write earlier was probably, I mean, you have said much more. Let me put it that way.
Okay, Ji. Thank you. If there's nothing to say, I really perfectly understandable. It's interesting, Ramji comment something, how it's all in the corporate world. Would you want to comment, Ramji, on that? I don't know.
Yeah,
this is
namaste,
a real.
Guruji.
Yeah.
Yeah, namaste, Guruji.
Yes, sir.
Basically, I was trying to say that because there was this thing which came about showing love. I think Jayaji said that, showing love to other employees and treating everybody the same in the organization. People who do that are in very cutthroat commercial organizations or corporates. They're considered to be weak. They're considered to be people who are not aggressive. Because many organizations, they want very quick results, and those who are not producing results are kicked out. Okay, if you are not kicking out people, then you are considered to be weak and non-aggressive. If you are trying to develop people over a period of time and then showing them compassion and love, you are considered to be weak. So this is what I have observed in the corporate world. So I was just trying to say that many times people develop these tendencies and they create these conflicts basically to live up to the expectations of the organization in which they are working. The organization here could be a corporate, organization could be a society, organization could be a country. Like in a country, if you are provoked, if you are always told that you have to kill the fellow of other religion, then that is a culture which develops in the country, right? Then to live up to those expectations, you practice those things. Same thing happens in a company, same thing happens in a family, same thing happens in a society, in a village. You get into some corporates, you get a feeling for the culture of the corporate. Some corporates are very nice. You get a good feeling when you go into some corporates. But you get into some corporates, you can feel the tension in the air. You can see that people are all competing with each other. They're all fighting with each other. There is tension in the air. So I think a lot, many times, it is a culture which gets created in the organization, which again is linked to the kind of objectives people are given, the goals they are given, the rewards they are given. I used to have this I'll just take half a minute to give an example that we had this value in our company that we treat our employees very well. Okay. And I had a finance head who was a pig-headed fellow in the sense that he was so rough with his people and he used to fire them left, right, and center, shout at them morning to evening. His BP used to go up, employees' DPP used to go up and things like that. But he was a terrific performer. At the end of the month, at the end of the year, results were always above his goals. So what do I do as CEO? Do I fire him? Do I counsel him? Do I tell him that you are doing well, but you are not doing well because you are achieving numbers, but on the way there are many dead bodies lying? Now, corporates will always have this kind of conflict that how much do you balance between results and the process which is followed for achieving results? So that's where I was just trying to say that it is not only in corporates. What we see in our country today is also the same. The country's culture has undergone a huge change in the last 10 years. Now, this culture is a very different culture what we are living in today. And this is also because of the expectations. People always will try to live up to the expectations. What is expected of them when it is made clear by the leaders. A CEO in a country or a prime minister in a country or a CEO in a company, when they give the expected behavior, people will try to live up to that expected behavior. That is what I was just trying to say as a side comment, that it actually adds to your point that how difficult it is to treat everybody and merge all of those differences into oneness and treat everybody as a part of that Atman. So that's what I was just trying to.
Yeah, I really agree, and I'm sure what you said echo the sentiments out in the corporate or in the world out there. But as you took an example, rightly so, of a person, as you took of your experience, of a financial head, if I'm not wrong, you said he's producing, but in the process there are a heap of dead bodies. Like if one organ in my system has got cancerous, And do I hold on to that organ in my system? Or do I remove it because it's destroying rest of me? What would I do? Whether it is a corporate or a non-corporate, whether you are a country or national, I'm talking common sense. There's something cancerous in me. It's producing more something than what it's supposed to do. Would I still say, yeah, go on, because yet other organs will, doctor says, if you hold on to it 6 months, you will be declared dead. You will not be there to even report to me in 6 months.
Actually, again, it depends on the company, and some corporates will sack him, some corporates will give him a reward because he is producing results. So that's what I am saying, that it depends on what culture the corporate actually cultivates within the company.
In a matter of 2 years, the company shut down. Huge multinationals have shut down, closed down. It's not a question of what is right or wrong. History has proven time and again, you go against the law of nature, it is self-destructive. I may not agree to what the doctor says, at the end of the day, I can destroy myself. You know, so we are not sitting in judgment, what is right, what's wrong, but I'm saying every action has a certain consequence, isn't it? Now, I may want this, but there has to be a certain balance. I can't be like a bull in a china shop, can I? The moment I walk in and walk out, there's only a heap of destruction around me. You know? So it is important that, see, but there has to be a difference between an identification with all employees vis-a-vis how you express that love with all different employees. Like, I love the animal kingdom, but how I express my love to them is different. How I handle a king cobra is different to how I handle a sheep or a goat or a cow. Isn't it, G? The expression, the manifestation is different, but the emotion is there. We are all one. But if somebody needs to be whipped up to perform, I can do that with still the same love or identification. There has to be, it shouldn't be that it is, it should not that I should chop my hand because it's not, it is weak. I can strengthen that arm so that it enables to serve me. I can't chop off my hand because it's weak, isn't it? Or because I've dislocated or I've hurt and it needs to go through physiotherapy for 6 months. It's a pain in the neck, chop it off. Budiyama, is it possible in that sense? But there, perhaps, as you say, corporates may engage that, but one has to integrate this higher wisdom so that things are in a harmonious realm. As you said, there are certain organizations, you can see the evident friction and the restlessness. But if in some way that can be subsided, in some way there can be a harmonious spirit where I'm not competing with, you know, especially in sport, you know, you could, they could be bench players, isn't it? If you're not happy for your colleagues who are in that team, who represent the team, it's a very unhealthy atmosphere. Nobody would want to be sitting on the bench. Everybody wants to be on the field representing the team or the country. But yet, if you're not happy for your co-colleague who's performed well, who scored a century or who has taken a 5-wicket haul, I tell you, it's the most unhealthy atmosphere to exist in a team. Whether that may not be the corporate culture.
I know. I think since when we do this corporate type of program that we're planning, actually, I think there's an important aspect to be covered because of this conflict every corporate faces, and it might be worth covering that in a bit of a detail.
Yes, indeed, it's very relevant.
Yeah.
I get it. Now, how it comes out, indeed, I think there is a subject matter that deals with it, you know.
Yeah.
Yes, Harish. Yes, Harishji.
Guruji, if I may beg your indulgence just for about half a minute.
Please.
What I was trying to say to Ram on the side on his comment, unfortunately, it turned out that I've put it to everyone and rather than to Ram personally in the chat box. But anyway, what I was saying was that I completely empathize with what he's saying of, you know, the corporate culture and the corporate value system that exists, right? I suppose it is easier when you talk about smaller organizations, which are where an individual can be more, or the owner or the chief manager or the head can influence it far more than a large organization, which Ram is talking about, right? But still, I think the essential difference is that when you envisage, when you go beyond your personal selfish or smaller causes and we go to a higher cause, there are two ways that one can look at this. And this has to do with the culture which the leader sets, right? And the two ways are, one, you could say, this is what we have got to do. Now you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do this, and you lay down tasks. To my mind, this is also a proper way of doing it. After all, you probably arrive at these tasks in a meeting also, right? But this is what we say, what I look at it as, looking down on from a higher cause down to the action level, right? Instead, there is another way of looking at it, which is that you reduce yourself, and this is where the concept of ego comes in. You reduce yourself in size mentally, and you look up towards the cause, and you look at what are the actions looking up. It's a completely philosophically different aspect. And then you really talk about everybody working towards that higher upper cause, rather than your laying down a diktat. And I think that kind of a difference of looking up versus looking up to a cause versus looking down from a higher pedestal is what is the difference in culture which Ram is talking about. And that is what creates the friction, creates the tensions, etc., etc. Yes, some things are, sometimes looking down is the corporate quick method of achieving results, right? And as the other one may be a more long term. But that, I think, is the essential difference. And that difference lies with the leader.
Absolutely. No, it is important, as rightly said, it's the leader that sets the tone and gives direction to it, you know. And a leader, true leader, is one who is endowed with these higher values, you know. In time, only these leaders who have lived those values will be reckoned and will be regarded as leaders of the industry, you know, not those who have made a quick rise and collapsed, you know.
Guruji, if I may have a hazard, just one line, a guess. Ram is an acknowledged, internationally acknowledged leader in his field of knowledge of seeds, biotechnology, whatever you call it. He ran a biotechnology seed company, international company, right? He could take this attitude that, look, I know this, yeah, I'm worldwide regarded as the BAP in this field. And this is what we need to do. I'm sure he did not operate that way. He must have engineered that organization in a different direction. So it is not about your not being a master of your subject. It is about how you reduce yourself and approach the subject, right? And having peripherally interacted with some of his staff and having seen his organization and clapped on from the sidelines at his success, you know, I can say that he took the other approach of reducing himself and working out things for everybody to work upwards. So everybody was working upwards rather than somebody telling you know, laying down the law.
The fact that he's here and the thoughts resonate, it just, it doesn't, and the fact that you mentioned, it only enunciates what, am I audible? Yeah. So it just enunciates it, you know. So no, from his point, when he said how corporates function here, I knew he was only talking of what are the evident practices. I knew innately that that doesn't necessarily echo with him, or he doesn't necessarily endorse them, you know. So you know, what little of my interaction with Ramji, I know it resonates well, but the whole objective is how these ideas, perhaps, if it trickles down and transforms leaders of industry. It has a far and wider reach, and these are all transformational values, and the impact is far beyond the little one that each does, So I'm glad the discussion evolved into this. So the whole objective is, again, coming back to the main concept we talk about, having intelligent dissolve the entire world into the Atman. Now you all can visualize how almost an impossible challenge we have to dissolve everything into the Atman. Because when you go down to the action level, to the ground level, when you are dealing with the world, how to rise above the apparent differences and inject a thought of Atman or reality into it is indeed a challenge every sadhak will have to face, and cross that hurdle and evolve to that thought where you see the absolute reality, the Atman in it. So we have only laid down a methodology. The methodology is testing yourself, LCM. What is the LCM? You're operating action to action, experience to experience. The moment there is the higher the LCM, the greater the harmony, lesser the conflict. And the highest you can evolve is to see the Atman in your maid. Again, going back to the same example I started with, you can see the Atman in any situation. Or you can just say, this is what she is or he is. Okay. We'll come back to the text. Thank you. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purna Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.